Duality is a concept used quite a bit in the Naruto series. The dichotomy presented us in the form of Sasuke and Naruto, Kakashi and Obito, Hashirama and Madara. It continues on down the line and shows us good and evil presented by people, with the definitions of both often being blurred. The idea is prevalent through all of Naruto and leaves us invested, as we can understand both hero and villain. For the longest time, Obito was the masked villain behind the scenes, but what's funny is that Obito has more in common with Naruto than he ever had with Sasuke. Madara and Sasuke are like two sides of the same coin, but Obito is different. He wasn't anything special. He wasn't a reincarnate. He wasn't anything more than a guy with a grudge who was recruited to fulfill a purpose that he then took over due to his own ambition. And as Madara and Obito stood on the top of the Ten Tails, and as Naruto and Sasuke below looked up at the two ready for battle, I couldn't help but think, wow, they're fighting themselves. How similar Sasuke is to Madara, and Naruto to Obito. It's very clear that this was more than a fight against terrorists or some rogue faction. Naruto and Sasuke were having to face themselves in battle. And that's why this what if is so awesome. We're switching out characters. Naruto and Obito are now on the same team, and Sasuke and Madara are now on the same team. Kinda. So I can only guess what might happen next. Strap in and get ready for the video. But before we begin, only 25% of our viewers are subscribed. So if you're a fan of the video, please like and double check if you are subscribed, and with that out of the way, let's get into the video. It's a story I've told 100 times, and it's a story I'll tell 100 more. Naruto's birth wasn't without issue. Being the son of the Jinchuriki, bringing Naruto into the world required certain finesse that ensured that the only thing coming out of Kushina was the blonde little brat and not the big bad fox that seemed to be public enemy number 1 in Konoha from the days of Madara to the present. Historically, the Nine Tails was used to attack the village, and the same was true of this night as well. Plans were moving in accordance with Madara's will, in accordance with Kaguya's will, and in the shadows lurking, a man smothered in black, unconscious, serving as no more than a battery to the power the abilities required to pull everything off. Kept alive by Black Zetsu, Sasuke had not awakened for years, and that was good. All he needed was his body, not his contrarian mind. Zetsu's plan was following the rigid guidelines that had been set up since the beginning, that which he manipulated Madara one time into using and would then manipulate Sasuke into fulfilling. Sneaking in, Zetsu took the baby and held it hostage as a way to open Kushina up for attack. And finally, when the bait was cast and the powerful Hokage was thrown off kilter, Zetsu made his move. Grabbing onto Kushina, Zetsu teleported out via Yomotsu Hirasaka. Such a thing burned quite a bit of chakra, but thankfully he had the Nine Tails Jinchuriki with him. And with his Predapath granted by the power of his Rinnegan, he would absorb from her the chakra required to fill his reserves. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" Kushina asked. Zetsu, standing before her, completely masked as to hide his true nature, spoke. "Such a thing is not for you to know. Why do you think I would waste the time to explain it to you? It's not like you'll be alive long enough to fully grasp it." As the seal was weakened, Zetsu reached down, gripping the very chakra of the beast sealed within her, and began to pull. Her will, her chakra, it was all that was keeping Kurama in. And to her credit, even though the seal had not fully closed yet, her determination alone was keeping it in. But now that Zetsu had applied his own will to face Kushina's, there was nothing stopping the Nine Tails from spilling out like a tidal wave across Konoha. And as the roar of a monster echoed through the darkness, the night of tragedy had fallen upon the village. Minato Namikaze was quick to come to the rescue like an errant knight in search of his next chivalrous actions. Finding Zetsu, he readied to face him. It was Zetsu alone that was standing in the way of Minato's protection of the village, and he would not let anyone come between him and his duties. As the battle began, it was quite different from the one you know. Zetsu, not being attached to Obito, possessed no intangibility, but his techniques were greatly expanded upon. Amaterasu, as well as all of the powers of the Rinnegan, gave Zetsu quite the edge. As Minato teleported about his flying Raijin, his movement seemed matched by a Menotejikara, in that Zetsu could also teleport via the power of his Rinnegan, even if an item were left behind. As Minato saw this, he couldn't help but wonder if it was in some way connected to the flying Raijin jutsu, as well as substitution jutsu. Minato would attempt to attack Zetsu, only to be cast back by the Diva Path. Minato, rising to his feet, knows that this is going to be trickier than he had first thought. The Rinnegan was a legendary dojutsu that he only knew from the stories Jiraiya had told. During this time, Minato could not be certain if the person he was dealing with was Nagato, or some other who had awakened the Rinnegan. He had decided to go with the idea that maybe it was Nagato by seeding some doubt. Jiraiya-sensei would be so disappointed in you, Minato said. He believed you would bring peace, and yet here you are, sowing discord. Such a waste of a good shinobi. To abandon your own ideals like this. How tragic. Zetsu smiled from under his mask. Ah, so you think I'm Jiraiya's student, huh? It's a great guess, but completely off the mark. I may have created Nagato, but do not be deceived. He and I are not the same. Created Nagato? Minato asked. Zetsu sighed. You know, before I ripped the nine tails out of your wife, I told her the same I'll tell you. You're not going to live long enough to truly grasp what I'm saying, so there would be no real point in telling you, now would there? Zetsu rushed forward with his hand out. Appearing from his palm was a chakra rod that Zetsu had prepared to use to stab Minato in the forehead. Minato reached out with his hand, gripped Zetsu's arm, and pushed it away, only for Zetsu's other hand to grip Minato's face. Tightly holding on, Zetsu began to use the Predapath to siphon Minato's chakra. Minato felt his strength failing him as Zetsu's was bolstered by this. Minato would suddenly switch to Senjutsu in an attempt to poison Zetsu. However, Zetsu quickly adapted to it. Sage mode, huh? A technique I'm all too familiar with. You thought you could catch me off guard. Pathetic. Minato then gripped Zetsu's arm, placing a tag on it. He then threw a kunai in another direction and used his flying Raijin to teleport out of the monster's grasp. Standing there, the orange pigmentation around his eyes telling any who could see that he was using Sage Mode, he spoke. You know, I learned Sage Mode, but I never really relied upon it. Takes too long to build up energy, but in cases of emergencies, I like to break that glass. This should even out the distance between us. Zetsu turned. Your usage of Sage Mode is a pale imitation to that of Six Path Senjutsu. Inferior in all ways. You hope to use it to defeat me. Minato stood there, looked left and right, and simply replied, yeah? This amused Zetsu to no end. Then come at me again, Hokage of the Leaf. Let me show you the futility of your efforts. As Minato once more drew close, Zetsu's strikes became sharper and more serious, as if he were attempting to prove the superiority of his style to Minato's, even neglecting to use more of the Rinnegan's abilities. Minato's attacks came in and Zetsu pushed them to the side easily. This test of taijutsu and senjutsu began to come down to the wire. Minato was in a losing battle, and he knew it. Zetsu had been alive for 1,000 years, and during that time he had cultivated not only influence in the world system to manipulate things on a grander scale, but he also cultivated his own skills. And because of that, mixed with his pride in proving his mother's techniques were superior to any child of the sage, he lost sight of what the battle was about. He had Minato struggling, and Minato, the moment he was pushed back, would form a Rasengan. Oh, please don't tell me you think you're going to do anything with that tailed beast ball ripoff, Zetsu sighed. You're overhyped, Namikaze. You act like you have all of these great techniques, but which of these did you actually invent yourself? Everything you have, everything you are is stolen. Your flying Raijin, your shadow clones, all of these techniques you ripped off from Tobirama Senju. Your Rasengan is a ripoff of the tailed beast ball and 10 times less potent. What did you actually come up with on your own? Or is your whole personality nothing more than stolen arts? It was then that Minato used his flying Raijin to teleport to Zetsu's arm, where he gripped it before forcing the Rasengan into the side of his head. As he did, Zetsu was blasted away. Minato was left there, holding onto the severed arm of strange flesh that puzzled him deeply. He tossed it aside. You know, you talk way too much, he said. Zetsu was laying there. He felt intense damage through his host body, concussion, and very likely brain bleeding. While Zetsu himself was fine, he needed to keep this body alive, as it was the only one that he could make full use of the powers of the Rinnegan with. Barely able to stand, he leaned on his left side, of which he was in true physical control. This is not the last you'll hear of me. Zetsu would disappear. Sadly, this would be the last Minato would hear of Zetsu, as in his attempts to defeat the Nine Tails and reseal it, Minato, along with his wife Kushina, lost their lives. The Nine Tails is sealed into Naruto, who proceeds to enter the care of the third Hokage until such a time as the child can care for itself. This doesn't stop the village from panicking and searching for the party responsible for the appearance of the Nine Tails. It's stated that the Nine Tails possess the Rinnegan markings in its eye. This is a disturbing turn of events to the third Hokage. Danzo states that the Rinnegan is a power awakened only in the Sharingan, and means that the Sharingan must have evolved into it by someone in the Uchiha clan. During this debate, Fugaku stands up and states that there has been no report within any of the Uchiha that a Rinnegan has been awakened. The only person in the village confirmed to have a Rinnegan would be Kakashi Hatake, and so Kakashi would be called up for questioning, but he pleads himself innocent. He would allow, under the questioning of Hiruzen, the interrogation squad to enter his mind and search the contents for any sign of involvement. From this, Kakashi's innocence is proven. But who could be the one at fault then? Hiruzen calls in Jiraiya to deduce who was behind this. And as Jiraiya examines the evidence, he makes mention that besides Kakashi, there has only ever been one person in his life that has awakened the Rinnegan. He dearly hopes that it isn't true, but another suspect could be his own former student, Nagato. Jiraiya knows that he needs to find Nagato and determine that it wasn't actually him. Jiraiya leaves the village in search of Naruto and Amagakure, and upon getting there he learns that the village is under new management, and the former leader, Hanzo of the Salamander, has been dethroned and brutally killed. Jiraiya is shocked to learn that such a thing could be possible. He hears of the new leader, a young shinobi named Pain. However, due to the fact that Ame has gone dark under the rule of Pain, it's obvious that he doesn't want any information about himself getting out. That being said, he doesn't exactly want to bring Konoha down upon his head either, as he has not gotten the Akatsuki on its feet yet. Due to this, Nagato would take up a new strategy, one of anonymity. As Jiraiya stalks the streets searching for answer, it's then that Konan appears. "Jiraiya-sensei," she says from her perch on a pipe high off the ground. Jiraiya looks back. "Konan, it's been some time." "What are you doing here?" she asks. "I'm here actually to talk to you and the others. Something's come up." Konan shakes her head. "You are not welcome here." Jiraiya takes that in the gut. "That's quite the thing to say to the man who practically raised you." "I don't say it out of disrespect. I say it for your protection. We know you're snooping, and it's not appreciated." "Then why not just meet with me directly?" "What do you think I'm doing now, Jiraiya-sensei?" Jiraiya stands there, his face pelted by the rain. "It's quite wet out here. How about we head somewhere dry?" He leads her to the old shack where he once raised them. Walking in, he turns the froggy sign around to show that he's in. "Care to turn yours around, Konan?" She looks at the signs and then backs at Jiraiya with apathy. "I don't know I'm the same me that I was when I was last here. I don't believe I have the right to turn that sign around." Jiraiya's eyes widen awkwardly as he pulls up a seat. "This place brings back plenty of good memories for me." "I feel nothing but sorrow here," she said. "You care to tell me about it? About..." He motions all around him as if motioning to the whole village. "All of this?" "I would, but you have yet to tell me what you're doing here." Jiraiya sighed as he thought about it. "Not long ago, Konoha was attacked. The Ninetales escaped." "And what does that have to do with us? Why not deal with it internally?" "The reason is that it wasn't an accident. It was a measured attack, and the culprit has the Rinnegan." This caught the attention of Konan. It also catches the attention of the human path that Nagato had sent out to spy from a distance. "A Rinnegan?" Jiraiya nods. "Yes. The first person I thought to ask was Nagato. He had the Rinnegan. Where is he?" "Nagato is dead," Konan said with surety in her voice. Jiraiya detected no lie. What she said, she truly believed. "He's dead. How?" "An ambush. We were supposed to meet up with Hanzo of the Salamander. We were to discuss peace and how it could be achieved with other villages. Except, it was a trap. He had grown jealous of us. He attacked us. Our entire group was eradicated. That day, Yahiko died. And so too did Nagato. Hanzo killed him. Killed them both. And perhaps even I died that day as well. The one you came seeking no longer exists." Jiraiya seemed grief-stricken, though he covered it well. "And what about this Pain fellow? Who is he? And what is he to you?" "What matter is that to you?" Konan asked. "Well, I suppose I deserve to know. I can only assume he's the leader of your group now. He defeated Hanzo of the Salamander. Coming from a man who fought him, that is no easy feat. Hanzo is very strong, and beating him to take his place. That's something I think all the villages need to know more about." "We owe no village anything. Who our leader is would be our business, and our business alone. If he wishes to remain anonymous to the public eye, that is his decision." Konan stood. "I came to bring you this message. The one you seek is dead. Your spying is not appreciated here. Lord Pain and Ame as a whole seek no quarrel with Konoha. But for the sake of your village and your own safety, leave Ame immediately. If you remain and continue to snoop like this, we will consider it an act of war, and Ame will readily rise to the occasion to fight. The only thing you need to know about Ame is that its forces are stronger now than they've ever been. Now, for your own good, and because I respect you and don't wish to see you harmed, I issue this first and final warning. Leave the village or face consequences." Konan left the little shack. Jiraiya sat there silently for a moment, just thinking. A pair of Rinnegan eyes looked in at him from a crack in the wood of the now dilapidated building. Jiraiya sensed he was being watched and turned back to look, only to see nothing was here. "I'm under surveillance," he said. "I guess there's nothing more I can do here." He stood and began to leave. Returning to Konoha, he would report what he found. "According to my former student, Nagato is dead, and has been replaced by this extremist named Pain." "Do you know what happened to Nagato's Rinnegan?" Hiruzen asked. "Frankly, no. For all I know, this Pain fellow could have pilfered him. Honestly, I don't know what other thing it could be but that. I just don't see a random nobody ninja appearing out of nowhere and bringing down the salamander like that. But I have no proof. This Pain fellow doesn't seem interested in showing us anything. Transparency is a dream best left in Slumberland with this guy." Jiraiya thought for a moment. "That Kakashi kid, how did he achieve his Rinnegan?" Hiruzen began to recount the story about Rin's death, the achievement of Mangekyo Sharingan, and his achievement of the Rinnegan. "He can switch between all three at will," Hiruzen said. "He can achieve the Rinnegan, but it wasn't his eye. Why? We do not know. All we know is that when Sasuke died, he passed his Sharingan along to Kakashi, and Kakashi awakened a Mangekyo, which already should be impossible for an implanted Sharingan like that. Yet somehow it evolved into a Rinnegan. There's no real explanation for it. It just happened." "Well, if Kakashi's eye awakened, then perhaps there's a chance it was because of the Rinnegan that Kakashi could awaken the Mangekyo. That means there's a possibility that the other eye that belonged to Sasuke awakened as well." "If that were possible, of course. Sasuke's entire right side was crushed by a boulder. The chances that his Sharingan survived are close to zero." "But they're not zero," Jiraiya said. "It's possible that it wasn't destroyed. And given that you don't know for certain, I take that to mean you never recovered the body?" Hiruzen shook his head. "We didn't." Jiraiya also took this into account. "Then, erring on the side of caution, I say it's safe to say that there are 3 known Rinnegan in play, in locations we do not know. This could mean we have, including Kakashi, anywhere between 3 and 4 Rinnegan users running around in the world if Konan didn't secure or destroy Nagato's eyes." "What are the chances of someone awakening a new set entirely?" "Very low. The chances of even one set of Rinnegan awakening is so low that, theoretically speaking, it should be impossible. The only person known to awaken it was the Sage of Six Paths himself. The chances of the sudden awakening of not just 1, but 2 users of the Rinnegan are already so astronomically high that it should be impossible. It only becomes all the more impossible for there to be a third to awaken. But then again, never say never. If 2 have awakened it, then perhaps someone has learned how to produce them, and is currently testing it on multiple people." "Who could do such a thing?" Hiruzen asked. "The only person I think has the guts and the intelligence to do something like that is Orochimaru. He has been studying Kekkei Genkai as of late, hasn't he?" Hiruzen nodded. "We should check him out and see if he's got any answers for us." Well, needless to say, things did not turn out as well as they had planned. You see, Orochimaru had been studying Kekkei Genkai, but they hadn't come to know yet how obsessed he was with it, and upon entering his laboratory, they found many disturbing things and launched a full investigation. This investigation revealed the location of many secret laboratories, many of which still containing the bodies of many missing persons who had been reported to the Konoha police force as of late. Together, Jiraiya and Hiruzen worked to bring Orochimaru in. They managed to arrest and interrogate him. They asked if he had discovered how to awaken the Rinnegan, and Orochimaru said that he had wished he knew how to awaken a Kekkei Genkai as powerful as that. But so far, he had had no luck even replicating the Sharingan, let alone something so far beyond it. Orochimaru was left in a cell as the others continued to search his labs. They found many things, some considered great scientific discoveries, most of which would have seen Orochimaru awarded and heralded as the greatest scientist to ever live. If only he weren't bat guano crazy. No new leads were found on the user of the Rinnegan. Due to this lack of evidence pointing to any one person, the entire village began to believe that it was Kakashi who had done it, though there was no proof. The village leadership believed him innocent. Well, likely innocent. It's not like it was impossible to trick a mind probe by the Yamanaka clan, but those in the village who, despite having no proof, assumed Kakashi was guilty. After all, he was the perfect fit. Circumstantial evidence pointed to him, as not only did he possess the Rinnegan, which was a rare dojutsu, and the one that had cast the Nine Tails under control, but also he was connected to Minato Namikaze, the 4th Hokage, whose wife, Kushina, was the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. They even mentioned how they witnessed Kakashi following Kushina around during her pregnancy, as if he were suspiciously scoping her out. Kakashi, of course, wasn't. It was an official mission from the 4th, and there was paperwork to prove it, but public opinion hadn't been swayed. By this time, the clan name Hatake had been dragged through the mud. Sakamoto had betrayed the village to save his own team, and cost innumerable lives through his selfish decision. Who would expect his son to be any different? To say that this made Kakashi's life a living nightmare was an understatement. Hiruzen saw this and knew how Kakashi must be feeling. To lose his master, to lose the only woman in the world he could treat like a mother, to lose his best friend Sasuke as well as his other friend Rin, to lose his father to Harakiri, and then also lose his own honor to villagers who claimed him to be as bad if not worse than his father. Hiruzen's heart bled for Kakashi. He did his best to shield him from such speculation, but there wasn't more he could do besides that. All he could really do was sit and watch. As the years went along, Naruto continued to grow, becoming stronger and taller every day. But much like Kakashi, Naruto was a cast-out. Due to him being the next Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, public opinion against him was very toxic. And though Hiruzen had charged them never to tell Naruto what he actually was, it became obvious that the people were still venomous towards him, and likely still talking about it to their children who would also pick on him. However, there was one house in particular that disavowed the treatment of Naruto, and that house was the house of clan head Fugaku Uchiha. Fugaku was a close personal friend of Minato's, and Makoto was the best friend of Kushina. They knew exactly who Naruto was, what he was, and where he came from. And though they also could not tell Naruto or anyone else due to the rules, they were the kindest of people, and very often they would bring him food anonymously to help him out. On days where he was at the academy, Makoto would take it upon herself to personally go into his apartment and clean up. She was the unseen mother that Naruto never realized he had. Furthermore, Itachi had volunteered under his father's recommendation to be among the Anbu squad that kept watch over Naruto. And lastly, Fugaku explained to his youngest son, a little black-headed mess named Obito, that Naruto was very sad, but a very good kid, and that he should try to be friends with him. Obito, having a heart larger than anyone else in his family, would gladly take it upon himself, and would turn it into a challenge to be Naruto's absolute best friend. Of course, this didn't stop them from getting into fights with each other. After all, it's common knowledge that individuals who are very similar tend to dislike each other. There's a reason why opposites attract, and considering that Naruto and Obito are like mirror images of each other personality-wise, this means they clashed quite often, especially over their shared dream of being Hokage. There could only be one Hokage, and both boys were vying for that spot with a passion. This led to many arguments and even physical altercations between them, but a friend is a friend, and even when they fight, a brother sticks close. And that's exactly how Naruto and Obito were. When someone picked on Naruto, Obito was the first one to throw a fist in defense of his self-declared brother. And when Obito was in trouble, the same happened here too. Both Obito and Naruto shared many interests. When they weren't fighting, they were talking about their favorite games, movies, and manga. They also seemed to develop a bit of a perverted nature. Whether Naruto was perverted and corrupted Obito or vice versa, they both ended up with particular tastes in women, which were evident in the way they used their sexy jutsu. Both tended to use it mostly for gags, but it was no less disturbing, and even from time to time caught Hiruzen off guard. Obito declared that as the first shot fired in their battle with Hiruzen for the title of Hokage, something that they would eventually find in common with Konohamaru. That being said, the two of them eventually did develop crushes on girls, but the worst part about how they were so similar was that they both developed the same crush on the same girl, Sakura Haruno. Love can be a wedge sometimes. And as they began to fight over her affection, they found themselves becoming more and more like bitter rivals. Often angry with each other, sometimes avoiding each other, many a time having forgotten the friendship they once had together. And the worst part about this was that Sakura was absolutely disinterested in the both of them as a whole. She absolutely detested the idea of ever being in any form of relationship with either of these two. But unluckily for her, she would be forced into having a relationship with both of them by Hiruzen, that relationship being teammates. You see, Hiruzen was an intelligent man, and when he was building teams for the next generation, the first team he formed was Team 7. Considering how universally hated Naruto was, he thought that the best team for him to be placed on should be with Obito Uchiha. And as for filler, he put in Sakura, who he believed that since the two boys seemed to like her, meant that they must be friends. How wrong he was. But all the same, he came to realize that if she hung around them long enough, maybe her hatred would let up into a fondness. And maybe their over-obsessive natures would turn into brotherhood. And who did he choose to be their leader? Well, none other than Kakashi Hatake. You see, Kakashi had nobody left, and his life was a dark pit of a hellish existence. So to add a little spice to Kakashi's life, he sent him to be the personal Jonin of Team 7. Why? Well, there were a plethora of reasons, but the main reasons were these. Kakashi had known Minato, Namikaze, and Kushina. All the friends Kakashi had ever had were connected through Minato, and considering that Naruto was Minato's son, they should be able to bond, especially considering how Naruto himself was, much like Kakashi, hated by the village. The second reason was that, like Obito, Kakashi possessed a Sharingan. His usage of the Sharingan should allow him to help Obito understand his own abilities better, should it awaken. However, Kakashi did not think this to be a good idea, as he had already been accused of being the one to set the Nine Tails loose. So how would it be considered acceptable to the village for the man who they believed to be responsible for setting the Nine Tails loose to be placed on the same team as the Nine Tails was now? Hiruzen told him that it was because he knew Kakashi was innocent, and that it was his decision to make, not the village's. All things considered, if Naruto ever did lose control of his tailed beast, Kakashi should have the abilities required to help him regain control. Kakashi eventually relented and joined the team. Hiruzen knew that it would be rough just starting out, but he knew that the team's synergy would go through the roof the moment that they got used to each other. After all, they all had the potential to form a deep bond with each other, and that was perhaps the most important part of a team. All they had to do was wait for it to happen. And that's where I think I'll stop for today. There's most definitely going to be more to this story, but you're just gonna have to wait. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to receive notifications for when our latest videos are released. And while you're waiting for those, check out these other videos on your screen now. I bet you'll enjoy them. Until next time, peace out.